Hello, welcome everybody to the Wyebot training series on network tests. I'd also like to let you know that in the room with me is Mike Gore. He will be able to answer questions that you may have during the session. So you can actually click on the chat icon, and in there you can direct questions to Mike, which he'll be able to answer as we go. We may have time sometime towards the end for a small Q&A session, in which we could potentially take verbal questions, but you can certainly, type your questions in the chat box and then do it that way. All right, we'll get started. Just to begin with, the agenda will just go over some of the items that we are going to cover. Yes, the focus is certainly on the network testing today. I just wanted to bring up this one point that, the Wyebot sensor is definitely a multi-radio sensor. When you are running network tests, then you can keep doing other things, alongside as well. The sensor does not stop collecting data. The Bluetooth, the spectrum analysis, and the data capture on other radios continues to happen. We'll cover on the network test side, how to set up your SSIDs, the My SSIDs. We'll also cover, how to set up notifications so that you can get alerted when a network test fails. We'll go through how to set up the network test profiles and different kinds of tests. And the different kinds of tests that are available, we have many of them. We'll cover each one of them. We have a test for Wi-Fi connectivity. We have a test to do standard ping stuff. You can do application testing that can be done on both wired and wireless. Ping tests also can be done on both wired as well as wireless interfaces. There is speed test that is available. Also, again, you can select whichever interface to do it on. Both is possible. There is a Wi-Fi performance test, which is similar to speed test, but allows you to test Wi-Fi performance internally within your network without hitting the internet at all. And then you can also do a security audit, which is basically an Nmap scan of your network, wherein the sensor will connect to your network and run a range of tests. And then lastly, there is a network discovery test, and there is device monitor capability as well. We'll go through each one of them. All of these tests are available on the Wyebot sensor. Then we will have a short discussion about some of the features that are upcoming in the next release. We'll likely be launching them next month. We have added the ability to look at historical problems and solutions. So not right now the dashboard shows you what is available today. We can now also see what happened in the last day, week, or month as well. We are now also adding the ability to graph out all of the network test results. So in addition to those being available in a tabular format, we will graph out those and we will show you what are the capabilities that have been added in that direction. We have added additionally captive portal support for any of those customers who have AeroHive as the AP vendor. There is additional capability around network test breakdown, wherein we are now breaking down the time taken to resolve each URL, whether that is for ping test or for application testing. And if you are a customer who uses WPA2 Enterprise and basically are using username and password kind of stuff, 802.1x authentication, then we are also now separating out and showing you the radius server response time as well. And lastly, we have enhanced, support for HyperF. We have now added support for HyperF 3. That the advantage with HyperF 3 essentially is that it can actually go past NAT boundaries. Some customers want this, and then would like this, so that support is also available. So at the end, then we will have a Q&A session. But as I encourage everybody to keep asking questions, in the chat window as they come along. Okay, what I'm going to do is we'll first go through just like a PowerPoint, this one, and then very quickly we'll jump into the real live demo. So the first step, of course, before you can use network tests is that you have to configure my SSIDs, the SSIDs that you have within your environment. So if you're using WPA2 Personal, then you got to enter the password or the pre-shared key. If you're using WPA2 Enterprise, you enter the username password. And if you're using captive portal or, more logically web browser-based login, then you check the box which says captive portal, and then you select the AP vendor that you are using, Cisco, Aerohive, Meraki, Ruckus, whatever you may have, and then you select the captive portal type, whether it is login or if you're just having something which says, I accept the terms and conditions, and click through, and there you go. So here's just an example screenshot. We will go into the real live one. This is showing you, once you've set them up, then you basically get a button which says, I want to confirm my SSIDs, and you also see this small thing over here which says on the bottom, which says create network test. So what we are doing with this is this essentially creates sample network tests for you. You can obviously add, delete, modify the tests that we have created, but the purpose here is to just give you a flavor of what is possible, and then you can certainly modify them to your taste. When you confirm the SSIDs, you see a box that, yes, all the sensors will be restarted, and they are basically, we push a configuration down to every sensor, which will then ensure that they only select a channel that is used by your SSIDs. And here is just, again, a sampler of what things would look like for the automatic test creation that we do. And you can, go and modify them. You can look at, change the frequency, etc., change the name, change the URLs. All of that can be done. As part of the upcoming features, we also have, how to, what stuff is available inside of the graphs. So you'll see that we have added additional connection details. There are Wi-Fi parameters, radius response time, which I mentioned earlier. We've added DHCP server response time over there as well. DNS resolution has been broken down. So every step that a client would be part of when it is making a connection with the access point has been broken down separately. So that, and when you get an email, it will actually tell you where exactly the problem happened. And within the test details, you will see that based upon the type of the test, we will have graphs, which shows you, for example, for ping, it'll show you the round trip times. For application test, we show you the response time. The speed test, it'll show you the internet upload and download speeds. And for HyperFast, it'll show you, the internal Wi-Fi performance, of your network. And for the security audit, you can look at open ports. And let's jump over to the live demo now. Before we do that, just, if you, of course, know the website, in case you have questions, on anything, you can obviously email support@wyebot.com at any point of time, and we'll get back to you. So at this point, I will jump over to, the first part, which was, how to set up the My SSIDs. So here what we'll do is we'll go over, let me just make this window a little bit bigger so you can see that, and there we go. So what you can see over here is that your sensor will automatically discover SSIDs, and they will be populated in the window below over here. And you will see an exclamation icon over on the left sidebar. The purpose of that essentially is to say that, this is what we believe are your SSIDs, but we want you to confirm them, because in a small set of scenarios, if we are, next to another neighbor or something, or in your dense city environment, then we could probably pick up your neighbor, or maybe we have also seen sometimes the sensor will pick up a very strong printer that is right next to the sensor, and we may, be thinking that that is your SSID. So the purpose here of the exclamation mark is that, you will see all of your SSIDs. You can add, delete, modify. If we have not properly detected them, then you can click this add button and add other SSIDs. Whatever we are able to see, those are visible over here as well. You can select over here and you can click on add button, and then they will move into the window below. Now, once they are over here, at that point of time, you want to click on any one of these SSIDs and they can enter the credentials. So if I click over here, I can enter the credentials, over here. I'm just going to enter this. Okay, and I'm going to say update. At this point of time, you will notice that this checkbox for creating the test automatically appeared. So if I hit confirm, of course, by the way, I can add other SSID credentials as well. I'm just not going to do that right now. But if I hit confirm, at that point of time, what it is going to do is it is going to send these values to every sensor. And what I mean by that is if I go into the sensor configuration over here, you'll notice that the sensor is currently set to automatically select a channel. Now, once I have confirmed, and there is no value under track SSID. Once I hit confirm on these SSIDs, what is going to happen is under sensor configuration, it is going to send all these values, as names. So let us go ahead and do that, and that is going to cause the sensor to reboot. Actually, one more thing I will do, so just to show you the captive portal stuff as well. Mike, I believe we have a captive portal one over here.
Yeah, I have portal already in there.
Oh, there is already in here. So as a matter of fact, so this one, if I say this is an AeroHive captive portal, so if I click, in order to configure this, I say that this captive portal, which means that this SSID uses web browser-based login. So in here, I will select my AP vendor. In this case, this is AeroHive. So I'll choose AeroHive, and I will say that this is login or click-through. So I'll just say click-through for now. And what that means is that the meaning of click-through is that the user, typically like when you're at a hotel or like a Starbucks or Panera Bread, you connect to the Starbucks SSID, and it just says, you get to a web page which says, I accept terms and conditions that I will not do bad things, and you click on that button and then you go through and basically you're connected. That is the meaning of click-through. If you choose login, then essentially you put in a username and a password. To put things in perspective, when you go to a hotel, like a Marriott hotel, they'll typically ask you to put in your room number and last name, and that is essentially what this is. Your username could be your room number and your password could be your last name, or vice versa, or something else. If you're visiting an enterprise, the system may, generate some username, password, and that is what this is. So I won't change anything over here, but once I hit confirm on this, let's go ahead. It's going to pop up this box which says that these profiles will now be available for use under network tests, and also the sensors will be updated to apply this configuration. So I'm going to hit OK, and these profiles have been created. And what we can see now is if I go under sensor configuration, you notice that the system setting has now been changed from automatic to track SSID. And all of the SSIDs that we put in there are now under track SSID over here. This will cause the sensors to reboot one time, but it will also ensure that they will continue to always select a channel based upon this configuration. All right. Now, if I go into network tests, we can see that a sample set of tests have been created. And I can click on any one of them as well. We can do it that way. But I'm going to start from the add test profile just to show you, what kind of tests are possible. So if I click on add test profile, the first thing, of course, you do is you select a type. And as we were talking about, there are, all of these different test types available. So if I were to choose Wi-Fi connectivity test, I'll just give the profile a name, 1X connection, and I'll say, this is the only SSID that we had configured, so that is the reason only that one shows up in the drop-down list over here. And I can choose, what SSID to run the test on and what sensors to run the test on. For the moment, this is a Wi-Fi connectivity test. I'll just say leave it manually. There are scheduling options over here. So you can say, I want to run this test right now, in which case you say manually. You can also say, I want to run this test automatically and at a periodic interval. So you can choose any periodicity, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever of your choice. And then you can also select how you want to kind of align that test. If it's, once a day, that's where this kind of setting makes more sense. So, for example, if it's a speed test, which we will get to, you may want to run that at nighttime, at 2 a.m. in the morning, right? Let me first try to just run this test manually, and let's take a look at, how the results of this test look like. Now, before I hit create, you also notice that there is a checkbox at the bottom which says send notification upon failure of this test. Now, if I check this box, what is going to happen is the system is going to automatically generate an email alert notification to the people who have been configured to get a notification. And I'm going to show you where to configure those. As a matter of fact, you can see here, it tells you that users to be notified are selected on the management notifications page. And we will jump over to that page in a minute. But I'm going to create this test first. And there we go, the 1X connection test has been created. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this test and click on Run Now. So it'll take a minute or so, and the results of that test will come back. And while we wait for these test results, like it says, so awaiting test results, we will go over to the management page, which is where, you can configure who gets notified when a network test fails, right? So here I can, select all the users. These are all, our internal users over here, but I can select who gets notified when a network test fails. And you can add more users yourself over here, by clicking on add users. All those will be available. You can limit the users, what kind of access they have and all of that. And then those users become available in the list over here. Okay. So if I go back into my test result log here, we are still awaiting results, but while we wait for those, let's go ahead and look at a couple other test types, right? So that was the Wi-Fi connectivity test. We'll go in order. So the ping test here is the standard ping, and I'll just say, ping Google or something like that. And I can select the interface, again, wired or wireless. So last time we had selected wireless interface. This time I'm going to select wired. The sensor is automatically selected over here. I can go in here and add some IP addresses or just host names. So I'll just do, the Google standard DNS server. I'll go and add a couple more over here. And once I say, let's say if I'm going to choose every on this one, I'm going to say every 10 minutes and just do this. And this is a wired test, and I'm going to hit create. So now we have this test, ping Google. It's going to happen every 10 minutes. Let's go ahead and look at a different test type. This is network discovery. So the network discovery test essentially is going to go out and look for all devices that are available on your Class C network. So the purpose, again, here is it can help to discover names of devices. So I'm just going to call it discovery test over here. Type. And let's do this on the wireless interface. I'll choose the SSID that we have. And, we go say manually for, or we can actually just keep going with the, 1 hour. We'll just create the test. I'll show you the results in a different place. We'll just create the test over here. So this is the network discovery test. We don't need to input any kind of, parameters over here. We will show you some, like the ping test required which websites you want to ping. By the way, those websites, going back a little bit, that those can be internal or external. So we'll finish creating this network discovery test now. Let's go to the next one. So the next one here is application test. Now this one is generally most interesting to a lot of people. I will use, I'll just call this G Suite. A lot of people use G Suite, some not, but Office 365, same thing. We can add either one of them. So I'm going to select wireless as my interface, and I'm going to say, select my SSID again, what sensors to run upon, and again, I'm going to say every 1 hour. And here, you can put in some URL, right? I can say Google Drive. I can say, oops, it's not selected. I'm just going to use this one and copy paste this, change this a little bit, called Google Mail. I am going to add another one for Office 365. So this, as I said, most people like this a lot more because that is closer to what they do and use what their consumers or their students, staff, employees are using within the enterprise. And what this is going to do again is the sensor is going to make a connection to your access point, connect to your SSID, and then try to access the website. And it will give you all the details step by step that we talked about, right? So I'm just going to hit create on this one as well. You can choose to send, enable this notification as well. And hit create, and now we have created G Suite and Office 365 wireless application test over here. Let's go over to the next one, speed test. Interesting one. Of course, most people are pretty well aware of the speed test. This uses the standard Ookla speed test servers. You don't have to specify necessarily a speed parameter over here, whether it is upload or download. I'm just going to use this again, wireless over here, enterprise. I'm just going to call it my speed test, give it some name. We'll put it manually. Now this parameter over here is actually optional. If you know that you should get 100 megabits or 200 megabits or 500 or whatever, you can put those numbers over here. I'm just going to put some number. I'm just going to say 100 megabits of upload and 200 megabits of download, and I'm going to hit create. So again, what is the purpose and benefit of adding these optional parameters? If and when these metrics are not met, that is when our system will declare that test as a pass or fail. Basically, this is your pass-fail criteria you are defining. And we'll look at that once we get to look at the results of this test as well. Let's first just go through all possible tests, and then we'll look at the analysis of each different test type. The device monitor test. This is a very basic test. This one is only available on the wired interface. The reason for this is that essentially it's a ping test. If you have like a DHCP DNS server, some entity that you really care about, or your school, or enterprise company, server that you want to monitor, you can just put in the host name or IP address of that one or multiple one of those, and you can monitor those devices, kind of via the sensor interface as well. Right, so I'll just call it device monitor, test over here. I'll just give it some IP address, this is our local server. Over here, I'm just going to say, send me a notification if you cannot see that. So that's my device monitor test. And let's go back in here. Port scan. So port scan is an interesting one. The purpose of this test is to, as I said, like a wireless security audit. I use the term wireless. You can do it again on both wired or wireless. So I'm going to say, just call it security audit, or I should say wireless security audit. Maybe there's another one already existing. So I say wireless over here, and I'm going to pick this. Now, here I'm going to again put in one of our servers over here. The purpose here is that if you have like a guest network especially, right, you want to really find out that what is and is not accessible from your guest network. Like your protected assets, can they be accessed, and if yes, what can be done to those assets. So you can select what ports to scan. I mean, most of the time we suggest that you can leave it at the most common 1,000. You can say, all ports. You can say a range of ports where you can put in a range. Most people would leave it at the most common 1,000, and it does a pretty good job over there. And you would want to do this kind of an exercise, like, for example, once a day, right? You can say every night I'm just going to make sure that, I want to scan my own network, make sure what ports are visible on this protected asset. And as an example, we had we've had customers who said, my core switch interface was accessible, or some routing, main core router web interface is accessible. So the goal here is to essentially be an eye-opener for you, and not maliciously, but informatively in that sense, so that you know what is available. And then you can take action or choose not to take action. All right, so that was the port scan test. Lastly, we have over here is what we call as the HyperFast test. Now this, let me actually go over to a different, different cloud interface over here. I'm just going to use this so that you can see slightly differently. So in here, what you notice is so first of all, let me step back and say that the HyperFast test is actually very, very similar to the speed test. Now, why does it exist, and what is the difference, and what additional value does it provide? So let's first take a look at what does a speed test do. The speed test is essentially a test that is running between two entities, a client and a server, and the two parties exchange a lot of data, a ton of data between them, and then they measure how fast that data was exchanged. And based upon that, you come up with a speed, upload speed and download speed. In the case of speed test, furthermore, the server is located somewhere else on the internet which you have no control over. So when you are running a speed test, essentially, this is what is happening. The Wyebot sensor is connecting to your access point, which is then going to your, firewall, which is then going to your gateway or vice versa, whatever order they are connected in. And then you are going out to the internet and, interacting with a server on the internet. So any party could be slow. It could be the firewall that is slowing you down. It could be your gateway that is a bottleneck. It could be the speed test server that could be the bottleneck. Or it could be your ISP itself that could be the bottleneck. So when you want to find out, is it truly Wi-Fi that is not working within your organization, or is it the internet that is not working? That is where you want to distinguish and eliminate those external factors. The external factors being your firewall, your gateway, your ISP, and or the external speed test server. So the HyperFast test gives you that ability. Essentially, you can do everything the same way like the speed test does. You can specify the upload and download speed, but what you can additionally do is you can select an HyperFast server. Now you can say, I want to use my own server, and you can set up one of your own within your organization. Or even better, you can actually select another Wyebot sensor as an HyperFast server. And this automatically, by the way, shows here in the menu item. So you say that so this is the name of another sensor of mine, which is available in the conference room. I can say, HyperFast test to this one. I'm just going to create one so that you can see the flow. I select the interface. Everything else is the same. I select and I can put in my speed limits over here. By the way, here now I can put in higher speed limits, because I'm not going to be constrained via my internet speed or by my ISP or anything else, by my firewall or gateway. So here, I have now created that. I don't know where it went, probably to the next page. Maybe it was here, HyperFast test right here, right? So I can run that. So those are essentially all the tests that you can create. Now let's take a look at, how the results of those tests look like. So certainly you have, seen this kind of an interface, and I'm also going to mix up, and show you some of the stuff that is upcoming, which is the network test graphing ability. But let's go on to some of the more interesting one over here. So this is a different setup, but the goal here is still the same so that you can see the results. So here is a G Suite test. This is not the one that I created in just the demo before, but very similar, right? So I created this test on my sensor called as cafeteria, and if I click on the test details, I can look at, all of the details of the test right from when the test ran. So by the way, you can notice over here that this test is running every 15 minutes, 12:30, 12:45, 1 o'clock, 1:15, 1:30, 1:45, and so on, right? So when I click on this details over here, it tells me the time at which the test ran, how long did this take. It gives me information about the connection. And this is the new thing, by the way, we have added, the radius response time. So for enterprise users or anybody else who's using WPA2 Enterprise, this can be extremely valuable. Then, in addition, and all of those details are available for the connection itself. And in addition, then you can look at also the DHCP server response time. This is often very interesting and useful as well. This is new. Some of that stuff was or is not available in the software that you are running right now when you log into your cloud, but we'll be releasing this shortly, as I said, next month. So you can see the DHCP server response time, all of the gateway information, the DNS, how long is the lease duration. The other very important thing that we have now added and extremely useful for enterprise customers, all of our schools, education customers, enterprise customers as well, that you'll notice over here that the website response time is broken down on a per URL basis. The DNS time is broken down on a per URL basis. So you can see exactly where a problem happened. Let me actually show you an example here under how this looks under graphs. So I'll pick up the same test, right? So if I go into this G Suite Wi-Fi test, which we were looking at, we can now see that, so I'll just pick up some time over here. So here I can see that at, Tuesday, June 25 at, this time, the results, by the way, I can look at past week, day, week, month as well. I can look at any type of data. So right now it's showing me data for all of these URLs. I can choose to actually hide some of them. So if I click on these things at the bottom, I'm going to say I just am interested in Google Mail only. Maybe I should pick a different color, here. Google Drive, better color that you can look at. So in here, as I hover my mouse, you can see that normally speaking, the response time is low in the 150s, but here, yesterday at around 8 o'clock, the time was, at 8 o'clock, the time went higher. Now, what I can also look at is that what happened at 8 o'clock yesterday, if I were to look at the Wired, let's take a look at the Wired at Tuesday, June 25 at 8 o'clock. So here, there is a blip here, this is this morning. If I go in here, by the way, I can also zoom in. Actually, let me just shut off everything else so we can focus on just the one. And here, I can look at past days data. I can look at past week worth of data as well. And you can, compare as to what happened, on the wired interface as well as on the wireless interface. I'm going to switch back to the Wi-Fi test again, and I'm going to just, so that we can be a little bit clearer over here. So I hit other URLs. So here you're looking at response time. What you can also select over here is you can look at the DHCP details over a period of time as well, right? So I can see that normally my DHCP response time is of the order of 1 second, but then yesterday if a user was complaining, it went up a little bit, and just like any other graph, you obviously have the ability to export all of this data in graphical format. You can choose the past week graph, you can choose the past month graph, you can do all of that over here. If I choose DNS details, same thing. Now we are going to jump back to the per URL view, and in here again, you can unselect, you can select one particular URL only if you want, and all of those details are similarly available for you on the past day, week, month view as well. So this, by the way, is all part of the new stuff, so you will see shortly next month on this. Let's go into another test which also people often look at is the speed test. So this is, as I had mentioned to you, that the front level view over here is going to show you the main characteristic of the graph. In the case of an application test, it's going to show you the page response time. In the case of speed test, this is showing you generally the upload and download speed. The blue color represents the download speed, and the green color represents the upload speed over here. And of course, you can still look at the DHCP details. There is no, additional information available over here. The other test that I had mentioned was the Wi-Fi performance test, which, as I had mentioned, is very similar to the speed test, except for the fact that this is now happening within the organization. So you can see that in this case, it is still the speed that is being measured, but it is much higher. I mean, the speed that you were seeing, the internet service provider that we have is about 150 megabits, so it's limited, but now you can see it's upwards of 300 meg. And here you can set your own thresholds. So as an example, if I go back in here and if I look at my speed test, even for that matter, so this is happening daily, and I've set 100 meg upload speed expectation and 200 meg download expectation. If I look at here on the results, it shows me in red color, that the speed test actually failed. Now, it didn't really fail in terms of that it was, it did not run. It actually ran, but it's telling me if I scroll down, it's telling me that the speed test download is too slow. Why is the download too slow? Because I told the system that I must get 200 megabits and I'm only getting 92. So that's why it's complaining and it's saying that the download is too slow. On the other hand, I have my Wi-Fi performance test, which is different. Now, in this case, I may have put in different numbers. Let me actually show you. I think I have another one over here. This one, I have put in lower numbers. So these ones are, labeled as pass. Now, this time I got 372 and 307. We can take a look at what is the test profile set up as. So if I go into the HyperFast 2 setup, it is set up as 100 and 200. So we met the criteria, and therefore the system is not calling that as a failure.
Colors the red, yellow.
Yes. So Mike reminded me, thank you, Mike, that we should, mention something about the colors over here as well. So the color, the green, of course, pretty obvious, but, means everything has been passing, no issues over there. The yellow color over here indicates that it is currently passing, but there was a failure, right? So if I actually click on this icon over here and I sort it by the color, now I can actually see when did the failures happen. So, yesterday at 10 a.m., then, on 6/24 at 11 p.m. So I can look at those, and see when did the failures happen and what was, what actually happened over there. So I can see, for example, at this point of time on 6/26 at 10 o'clock, I wasn't able to reach only one thing out of these actually went through, the others did not. So a blip happened over there. You can also see the minimum maximum RTT time is much higher than the standard times are. And if there is a red color, that essentially means that, of course, there is a current active failure, most recent one. So I think I'll pause at this point of time and let people ask questions. If there are questions, I don't know, Mike, have you been?
Yeah, questions have been coming through, and
okay.
I'm answering those. But
okay, so if there is any other questions anybody has, do feel free to type those into the chat box so that we can answer those for you.
So as Anil mentioned, this software release with the graphs and some of the additional details, we're expecting that to be posted probably within the next 2 weeks. So keep an eye out for that. You'll see release notes as soon as those are available. So a question about the upgrade. So once we push the production upgrade to our cloud server, all the sensors will be updated with that, so everyone will have access to it immediately. Nothing is required on your part to get that new update. Let me also just take a minute to say that this is the first in our series of technical trainings on the Wyebot platform. Stay tuned for some information coming up on the next training session that we're going to hold in August. And this will revolve around business Wi-Fi analytics and how to use those with the Wyebot system. Also, we're going to send a short survey at the end of the demo today, just so we can help to improve these training sessions, and we'd appreciate if you give us a response on that. It shouldn't take long to complete. Okay, so if there's no other questions, we'll hold on for a few more seconds here. But otherwise, we hope you found this useful and a good introduction to network tests and the graphs on the Wyebot platform. This session was recorded today, and we will make that available for everybody to view. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.